What does it take to become a snow leopard? Back in the Soviet Union, this was the ultimate mountaineering challenge, a title earned only by climbing all 5 of the highest peaks in the USSR, each one over 7,000 meters. Each one deadly in its own way. I've ranked them all from the easiest to the most brutal and difficult. They span across Kyrgyzstan, Kazakhstan, and Tajikistan, towering above glacier valleys and cloud lines. Some demand serious skill, others demand everything you've got. Only around 700 people have ever done it. One guy pulled it off 9 times, and another one skied down all 5 summits. But we'll get to those stories at the end, so stay tuned. So what does it take to get the Snow Leopard Award? Let's break it down, one mountain at a time. We'll start where most climbers begin their journey, on the Kyrgyz-Tajik border, at a peak known for being the most approachable and deceptively dangerous. This is Lenin Peak, the gateway to the Snow Leopard Challenge. It stands at 7,134 meters, or 23,406 feet, on the border between Kyrgyzstan and Tajikistan. And for many climbers, it's the first big test. At first glance, Lenin doesn't look like a killer. There's no jagged knife-edge ridge, no sheer cliffs. The standard route is non-technical, with a steady walk into base camp and long glacial slopes above. And that's exactly why it's so dangerous. People underestimate it. They hear easiest Snow Leopard Peak and think they're in for a high-altitude hike. But the mountain has a dark sense of humor. Weather can change in minutes. Storms build fast, then sit overhead for days. Whiteouts hit without warning. And then there's the altitude. The route might not demand ropes or ice tools, but at over 7,000 meters, your body is slowly breaking down. The summit ridge feels endless, a slow-motion crawl in freezing winds, where every step takes effort. Base camp sits around 3,600 meters, and you'll pass multiple camps above that. Camp 1 at 4,400, Camp 2 at 5,300, and Camp 3 at 6,100. Most climbers spend 2 weeks or more acclimatizing and moving between them. Even with all that prep, only about 25% of climbers actually make it to the top. That means 3 out of 4 people turn back, usually due to exhaustion, altitude, or weather. And the summit day is brutal. A 15-hour round trip from Camp 3 with 1,000 meters of elevation gain and wind chill that can drop below minus 30 degrees Celsius. It's a mountain of extremes, from blazing sun at base camp to freezing high-altitude storms up top. Temperatures can swing by 25 degrees Celsius or more in a single day, frying you during the approach and freezing you on descent. So why is it so popular? Because it's often called the easiest 7,000er on Earth, and unlike Himalayan giants, you can attempt it for less than $2,000. Local operators offer full packages with permits, base camp support, and basic logistics starting around $1,000 to $1,300. It's one of the most climbed high-altitude peaks in the world, with about 1,000 climbers trying it each year. Despite that reputation, Lenin has seen some of the worst tragedies in Soviet mountaineering. In 1974, a Soviet women's team made headlines by reaching the summit. All 8 climbers, all strong, well-trained, died in a storm just below the peak. Their final bivouac was found days later. For years, it was held up as both a symbol of heroism and a brutal lesson in high-altitude decision-making. Then, in 1990, an earthquake-triggered avalanche swept through Camp 2 and killed 43 people, the single deadliest event in the history of the Snow Leopard Peaks. And yet, people keep coming. Each summer, hundreds try their luck on Lenin. Some use it to learn, some to prove something, and a few, the serious ones, are just getting started. From the broad glaciers of Lenin, we head deeper into Tajikistan, to a mountain that's bigger, wilder, and far more remote. It's less forgiving, more technical, and known for one of the longest summit days in the entire challenge. Peak Korzhenevskaya sits at 7,105 meters, that's 23,310 feet, in the heart of the Tajik Pamirs. It's the 3rd highest of the Snow Leopard Peaks and one of the most remote. Unlike Lenin Peak, this one doesn't lure crowds. The peak's name honors Evgenia Korzhenevskaya, the wife of Russian geographer Nikolai Korzhenevsky, who first spotted the mountain in 1910 and named it after her, but it wasn't climbed until 1953, decades after its discovery, by a Soviet team using a highly exposed ridge. At the first glance, it may not look that brutal, but this mountain is deceptive. Nearly every route involves steep, icy traverses and serious altitude gain, and it's prone to sudden weather shifts. Winds can blast through the high camps with no warning, and the snowpack often hides crevasses and icefall hazards. What makes Korzhenevskaya especially difficult is the length of summit day. Most routes involve a massive push from high camp to the summit and back, often taking up to 18 hours at extreme altitude. You'll hit sections of steep ice, narrow ridges, and exhausting false summits before reaching the top. And many teams have to turn back just before the final push. Despite being one of the more attainable Snow Leopard Peaks on paper, the reality is that many climbers underestimate it. The technical difficulty is moderate, but the combination of altitude, remoteness, and terrain wears people down. Rescue options are limited, and very few climbers have energy to attempt anything fancy. Most just hope to get up and down safely. Interestingly, Peak Korzhenevskaya was the last of the 5 Snow Leopard Peaks to be climbed in winter, finally summited in 1987. Even today, few teams return regularly. It's not as famous as Lenin Peak or Communism Peak, but it's just as worthy and just as brutal. If Korzhenevskaya is remote, the next peak takes it a step further. We're heading to a true Soviet giant, the highest mountain in the entire former USSR, towering, legendary, and once called Stalin Peak. This one is where the challenge starts to get deadly serious. This is Communism Peak, now officially called Ismoil Somoni Peak. And at 7,495 meters, or 24,590 feet, it's the highest mountain in all of the former Soviet Union. That title alone gives it weight. It's not just the tallest, it's also the most imposing. Sheer bulk, brutal exposure, and a reputation that looms large even among elite climbers. It rises out of the Pamir Mountains in Tajikistan, a brutal knot of rock and glacier nicknamed the Roof of the World. Remote, cold, and vast, this is where the real endurance begins. It was first climbed in 1933 by Soviet mountaineer Yevgeny Abalakov, and the Soviet propaganda machine made sure it was remembered. At the time, it was named Stalin Peak. After that, it became Communism Peak. And after the fall of the Soviet Union, it was renamed again for a Tajik historical figure. But names aside, this thing is massive. It dominates its surroundings and is easily visible from hundreds of kilometers away on a clear day. The mountain's north face is an enormous wall of ice and broken rock, and conditions can shift from scorching heat at base camp to sub-zero blizzards near the summit. What makes Communism Peak especially punishing is how it wears you down, not with any single technical crux, but with the scale of everything. Camps are far apart, and the ridgelines are long. Progress feels slow at every stage. Add to that a maze of crevasses, avalanche-prone slopes, and extreme solar exposure at altitude, and you've got a mountain that tests stamina more than skill. Despite being the biggest and most legendary of the 5 Snow Leopard Peaks, fewer people summit Communism Peak than Lenin or Korzhenevskaya. Not because it's more technical, but because it's remote, weather-prone, and relentlessly demanding. One particularly tragic story came in 2005, when several Russian climbers were caught in a storm near the summit ridge. Despite being just hours from the top, they were forced to descend. One climber was lost during the retreat. It's a reminder that, even with experience, this mountain makes no promises. And yet, for generations of Soviet and post-Soviet alpinists, this was the crown jewel. Summiting it meant you'd conquered the highest point of their world. It's a key step toward achieving snow leopard status. From the highest peak of the Soviet Union, we now shift east to one of the most iconic, a perfectly symmetrical pyramid of ice and rock. This next mountain looks sculpted, almost unreal, but behind its beauty is a brutal mix of altitude, freezing winds, and fatal mistakes. This is Tengri, one of the 2 Snow Leopard Peaks located outside of Tajikistan. It rises on the border between Kazakhstan and Kyrgyzstan and tops out at 7,010 meters, or 22,999 feet. But that number hides a twist. The mountain's rock summit actually sits at around 6,995 meters, just under the 7,000 meter mark, but the glacier ice cap covering the top lifts the official elevation to just over 7,010, and that's how the mountain is officially measured. It's also the northernmost 7,000er in the world, which means colder temps, stronger winds, and a much shorter climbing season. And while it might not be the tallest on the list, it's often called the most beautiful. A perfectly symmetrical triangle that lights up dramatically in the evening. But don't let the looks fool you. Tengri is extremely serious. The normal route is technical, exposed, and unforgiving, with sharp ridges, fixed ropes, icy traverses, and dangerous cornices. Most of the ascent is on steep snow and ice, and the final ridge to the summit is infamous for knife-edge exposure. It's also one of the deadliest Snow Leopard Peaks. In 2004, a massive rockfall struck Camp 1, sweeping away tents and climbers during the night. Multiple fatalities were reported, and the event exposed just how dangerous the lower parts of the route can be. The accident deeply affected the Central Asian climbing community and led to renewed discussions about route safety and early season hazards. Access to this mountain isn't easy either. Most expeditions start from Karkara Base Camp and fly in by Soviet-era Mi-8 helicopters, landing on the glacier below the mountain. From there, climbers face a series of icy pitches and technical moves to reach high camp. There's little room for error, rescues are rare, and even experienced teams can be caught off guard by changing conditions. In recent years, commercial expeditions have made the mountain more accessible, but it hasn't gotten safer. The steepness, route conditions, and altitude combine into a climb that's less forgiving than it looks. It demands real skill, cold tolerance, and sharp decision-making. Some climbers say that getting through the first 4 Snow Leopard Peaks only gets you halfway there. It's because the last one is just that much harder. It's the highest mountain in the Tian Shan, the coldest on the list, and the one with the longest, most difficult climb. This is the final test, the Victory Peak. At 7,439 meters, or 24,406 feet, it's the tallest mountain in the Tian Shan and the highest point in all of Kyrgyzstan. There's a saying in the Russian climbing community, "Don't tell me how many times you've been to Everest, tell me if you've ever been to Victory Peak." It is definitely the most feared out of this list. Victory Peak is notoriously cold, with harsh weather systems that move in fast and rarely let up. The mountain's enormous bulk creates its own microclimate, and storms here can last days. Temperatures can plunge well below -40 degrees even in summer. What makes it so brutal isn't just the altitude, it's the length of the climb. Most summit routes involve over 20 kilometers of exposed ridge and glacier travel, with massive elevation gain, full pack loads, and few safe spots to rest. The mountain feels endless. Unlike the clean ridges of Tengri or Lenin Peak, Victory Peak is a sprawling fortress of snow, ice, and jagged terrain. The standard route includes knife-edge ridges, crumbling cornices, avalanche-prone slopes, and constant risk of whiteouts. There's no easy line, and even experienced climbers describe it as a mental and physical grind. Victory Peak has the highest death-to-summit ratio out of all Snow Leopard Peaks, estimated between 8% and 10%, depending on the source. The danger doesn't come from one infamous tragedy, but from a long pattern of disappearances, failed expeditions, and deadly storms. In 2006, the well-known Kazakh climber Yuri Yablokov died during a solo attempt. In 2011, another tragic season saw several climbers perish due to exhaustion and altitude sickness. It's not unusual for teams to turn back multiple times, or for rescue efforts to fail entirely. Even among elite climbers, Victory Peak has a mythic status, not just because it's technically the hardest, but because it's so long, so cold, and so deadly. If you reach this summit, you haven't just completed the Snow Leopard Challenge. You've finished one of the most serious objectives in all of high-altitude mountaineering. Remember that guy who skied down all of the Snow Leopard Peaks? Not only that, he completed the challenge in record time. Andrei Bargiel climbed all 5 peaks in 29 days, 17 hours, and 5 minutes, starting from the advanced base camp under Lenin Peak on July 15, 2016. That's right, 5 7,000-meter peaks in under a month, and he skied down every one of them. Record time and record style. That's incredible. Andrei Bargiel's achievement wasn't just about speed. It was a massive logistical and physical challenge. He moved fast and light between peaks, skipping traditional acclimatization schedules and hauling ski gear up and down slopes that most climbers barely manage on foot. And then there's Boris Korzhenov, a Soviet-era alpinist who earned the Snow Leopard title 9 times. more than anyone else in history. He first earned the award in the early 1960s and kept going back, year after year. He climbed into his 60s, summiting peaks most climbers attempt once, if ever. His name became synonymous with endurance in the Soviet climbing world. He remained active into his final decade, and is still cited in Russian climbing circles as a model of what grit and longevity can look like. Those guys are legends, but no matter how much time it takes or how many times you do it, the Snow Leopard Peak Challenge is truly one of the most spectacular mountaineering achievements out there. So, do you have what it takes to complete the challenge and earn the Snow Leopard status? Let me know in the comments. Also, if you enjoyed this video, check out the rest of my stuff. I've got more stories about all kinds of unbelievable mountains around the world. Thanks so much for all the support lately, and I'll see you soon. Bye.